Hamas has solved the Rafah dilemma for the decision makers by breaking off the talks in Cairo over a deal to release the remaining Israeli hostages and begin a ceasefire. They really put an exclamation mark on this by firing a barrage of rockets from inside Rafah, targeting the Kerem Shalom crossing where Israel was sending humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip. 3 IDF soldiers were killed by these rockets, ending whatever doubt remained about what must happen next. Yes, the IDF will soon enter Rafah, and the evacuation of civilians from the eastern neighborhoods of the city has already begun, while humanitarian aid continues to be sent into the Gaza Strip. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your boots on the ground report about what is happening in Israel on the 213th day of the war against Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran. This is also the day of remembrance of the Holocaust and heroism in Israel, as Israel unites to remember the 6 million Jews who perished in the Holocaust. President Yitzhak Herzog spoke at a ceremony to mark this occasion, saying that the October 7 echoed the horrors in all of our hearts, but nothing can destroy this house. We will talk more about this in a moment, but first, I will tell you about the events of the past 24 hours. The barrage of rockets and mortars that were fired at the Kerem Shalom border crossing wounded at least 10 people and came as a surprise to everyone. It came after months of intense fighting in the Gaza Strip that included the destruction of many rocket launchers. There has not been many rockets or mortars fired from Gaza for these past months. An IDF spokesperson stated that fighter planes attacked the launcher that carried out the launches towards the area. In addition, fighter jets attacked a military structure in the launch area. It is important to understand that Hamas attacked the crossing from which most of the trucks with humanitarian aid to the residents of Gaza enter. Additionally, Hamas carried out the launches from a position about 350 meters from civilian shelters. This is another clear example of the way Hamas exploits humanitarian facilities and spaces for terrorist purposes, shamelessly using the civilian population as a human shield. Immediately after the barrage, the Kerem Shalom crossing was closed to the passage of trucks. A short time later, it was announced that 3 IDF soldiers who had been wounded in the attacks had died. Help us spread the truth together, share and subscribe to this YouTube channel by take a minute and press the follow button so that together we can give the truth its rightful place and share it with as many people as possible. As we have said several times in recent days, Hamas could have had a ceasefire in Gaza if they had agreed to the Israeli proposal to release the Israeli hostages. Instead, they choose to cut off negotiations and launch a rocket attack, so now the IDF will enter Rafah to finish off the remaining terrorists in there. The first step in this plan is already underway, with the evacuation of civilians from the eastern neighborhoods of the city to an expanded humanitarian zone further to the north. There is no question of a widespread evacuation of the entire civilian population in Rafah at this time. The immediate goal is to allow for the expansion of the fighting and to separate the civilian population from the fighting areas of the Hamas terrorists. The expanded humanitarian zones includes field hospitals, tents, and increased quantities of food, water, medicine, and other supplies. Along with this, in cooperation with international organizations and other countries, the IDF has enabled the expansion of the scope of humanitarian aid that enters the Gaza Strip. The IDF has publicly called on the civilian population, which is under the control of Hamas, to temporarily evacuate from the eastern neighborhoods of Rafah to this expanded humanitarian space. These announcements, which began to be made at 8 a.m. on Monday morning, are being sent by SMS messages, text messages, phone calls, and media broadcasts in Arabic and include information about evacuation routes. The evacuation is planned to progress in a gradual manner and in accordance with ongoing regular situation assessments. In contrast to what happened at the beginning of the maneuver in the Gaza Strip, in the humanitarian complex in the El Mawasi, there are tent cities arranged with food, warehouses, and hospitals. The security establishment hopes that this fact will encourage the population to go to the humanitarian spaces. Israel also hopes that the evacuation of the civilian population will convince the United States to support the ground operation in Rafah. At the same time, the transfer of humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip will continue. The Kerem Shalom crossing will indeed remain closed for now following the deadly attack against it. But the Erez crossing and other crossings will remain open, and trucks carrying humanitarian aid will continue to be sent through them. Airstrikes on terrorist positions in Rafah began in the early morning hours of Monday in preparation for the ground operation in the nearby future. Moving to the diplomatic front, CIA Director William Burns was expected to arrive in Israel on Monday following a visit to Qatar, which was prompted by the Hamas decision to break off negotiations in Cairo. While in Israel, Burns will be meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the head of the Mossad, Dedi Barnea, and other senior officials. Reuters reported from sources familiar with the details that Burns and other U.S. officials are strongly urging Qatar to put pressure on Hamas to return to the negotiations, as well as putting pressure on Israel to give the talks another chance. But the source told Reuters that the Americans are trying to save the talks from collapsing, but it doesn't seem like they really have the ability to influence Hamas. According to the Israeli sources, the Hamas insistence on a commitment to end the war, leaving them to reassert control of the Gaza Strip after the IDF pulls out, is what's stalling the negotiations. It is apparent from their behavior that the Hamas leadership does not feel like it's under any kind of pressure from the international community to make concessions. The fact that they've been utterly defeated on a kinetic battlefield and the civilian population of the Gaza Strip is suffering means nothing to them. They know that the international community blames Israel for this suffering, and they also know that they can win a political victory by simply surviving this conflict, so they don't care about their military defeat either. With this in mind, they have a clear interest in dragging out the negotiations for weeks or even months, wearing down Israel's readiness and will to continue and fight. From their perspective, this is a reasonable position, since there is so much international and even domestic pressure on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Therefore, Israel has no choice but to apply military pressure to Hamas, since no one is willing to apply any other kind of pressure on them. This means a move into Rafah and possibly also intensified security sweeps in other parts of the Strip where Hamas is attempting to reassert civil administration. This is the only option Israel has, considering the diplomatic pressure on our country coming from our allies, including the United States of America. Additionally, this rocket attack on the Kerem Shalom crossing shows us that Hamas is still dangerous to Israel and can't be left in control of the Gaza Strip. It must be completely destroyed and uprooted. Even if there is only a small remaining organized force in the Rafah area, when the IDF withdraws from the Gaza Strip, this will be presented as a victory from Hamas, and they will use it to rebuild their power. In a few years, they will be back to full strength and once again threatening the state of Israel and our people. Despite the sorrow we feel for the additional casualties among our own people and the additional suffering and cost that will come to us as well as to the Palestinians, the state of Israel can't allow this to happen. The rocket attack on Kerem Shalom is conclusive proof for Israelis and the whole world that an operation in Rafah is necessary, not only to eliminate the near-term threats from Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, but also to prevent the restoration of a terrorist control and military power in other parts of the Gaza Strip. So please continue to spread the truth with us, share and follow us, subscribe to this YouTube channel, and take an active part in spreading the truth by supporting us. If you'd like to see more videos like this one, please donate to us through the link you see on YouTube or go to our website at www.tbn.org/Israel. In conclusion, former Deputy Chief of Staff of the United States Army, General Jack Kine, presented evidence in the last 24 hours about the condition of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar. He said that according to sources, Sinwar is protecting himself and his family by surrounding them with Israeli hostages to use them as human shields. If I can make a brief comment on what we've reported on today, it is impossible to ignore the murderous anti-Semitism that is embedded in extreme Muslim ideology. It is anti-Semitism that preceded the Nazis, and the blindness that many had for it directly contributed to the October 7th disaster. On this Holocaust Remembrance Day, I must point out that Hamas leaders and their Iranian sponsors have proven themselves to be the inheritors of Hitler's legacy. On October 7th, they tried to exterminate Jews, which is what they say they want to do in their funding charter. They inflicted a terrible wound on Israel, but they failed to fully carry out their plan. But they continued to deceive us and ignite the fire of anti-Semitism in the world. The October 7th massacre poses the question, will we really learn the lesson of the Holocaust? So please continue to spread the truth with us, share and follow us, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. And together we will bring the truth as far as possible. I want to conclude by paying respect to the soldiers who fell defending the state of Israel. Sergeant Reuven Mark Mordechai Asulin, 19 years of age, from Ra'anana. Sergeant Ido Testa, 19, from Jerusalem. Sergeant Tal Shavit, 21, from Kfar Giladi. These three soldiers were killed yesterday afternoon in the heavy barrage from Rafah to Kerem Shalom. Asulin and Testa were fighters in the Shaked Battalion of Givati infantry units, and Vashvit was a fighter in the 931st Battalion of the Nachal Brigade. I also want to send a prayer for health and peace to the soldiers who were seriously wounded in this attack, including 2 soldiers in the 931st Battalion and a soldier in the Shaked Battalion. 9 other soldiers were moderately wounded, and we pray for the recovery as well. Please, this time more than anything, pray hard for the peace of Israel, for the peace of the Holocaust survivors, for the peace of the IDF soldiers, for the civilians in the Gaza Strip and in Israel who are both affected and harmed by this terrorist organization, Hamas. Pray against anti-Semitism, and most importantly, don't forget to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. This is a spiritual war, but we are going to win.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.